Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? I'm going to throw this straight up on the chat. Dan Cullen says, anyone know any full license drivers looking for work? Flatbed, van UK wide skylift deliveries? If anyone's interested in that. Morning all. Truckness this weekend. Lots of nice trucks and Truckness. What a fantastic name. Very envious. I'm going to go back through the chat very quickly. I've got so much to get through today, but I want to show you this. Jim Turner, quick off the mark this morning. Morning, Jim. Good morning to Dan Cullen. Good morning to Mark Whiting. I haven't pressed Mark's button yet. In the non-biblical sense, Gary Muirhead is here as well. I've definitely done Gary's button. Where does that bring us to? Jim Turner. We haven't revealed the mystery machine, but does anyone ever remember watching QI back in the day when it was Stephen Fry? You might recall that Alan Davis had an answer for every question he didn't know the answer to, and it was always a blue whale. It was never right. Jim, he's sticking with his guess of a JCB 6D. It is, I can tell you it's not. We used to have a festival called Rockness. It was wild on the banks of Loch Ness. Rockness. Worth hosting it just to have that name, really, isn't it? Morning all, says Alex Latham. Good morning to you, Alex. Gary Muirhead is getting in ahead, and he is going for the Cat 951. It's not one of those. Couple of things I want to get through very, very quickly. Let me start with this one. There you are. That is a report today from Construction Index. We were talking about insolvencies and the dire financial straits of the UK construction industry. How about that? Somebody has carried out, I don't even know who the somebody is, Gleeds, construction consultancy Gleeds have carried out a survey, and it's revealed 256 construction contractors found that more than half had projects impacted by insolvency in the last 3 months. Yeah, there's that many insolvencies about. Now, I'm going to take that one away because I also wanted to show you when I can remember how. Bear with me. We were also talking about where does all the money go in this industry? Well, that doesn't help. Persimmon Homes, you know, the house builder, written off 25 million quid because it invested it in modular house builder, Top Hat, which apparently has just gone pop. So 25 million quid just gone. I get upset if I lose a fiver down the back of the sofa, but maybe that's just me. One other that I wanted to show you, for obvious, but also for non-obvious reasons as well. Let's have a look. Where is it? There we are. There we are. The owner of a Bedfordshire dry lining specialist has been banned as a company director for 13 years for abusing the COVID bounce-back loan system. Nick Addison, who was sole director of Addison's Quality Limited, overstated his company's turnover to secure a loan in 2020 and used most of the funds for his own personal use. Apparently, the bounce-back loan was based on your turnover. Businesses were entitled to apply for a single loan with a value up to a quarter of their turnover from 2019 with a maximum limit of £50,000. Addison quality turnover in 2019 was not even a quarter of the £250,000 he claimed in the application. Isn't that just like stealing the charity jar from the counter of your pub or the church or whatever it might be? Not good, is it? Good at all. I'm going to say good morning to Andy Hare, who says, made it. Kettle was on a go slow. Thankfully, we recently switched kettles. We had a kettle that my wife decided was a fantastic investment. Fantastic investment, she said. Took about 4 days to boil enough water to make a cup of tea. That's gone. We've replaced it. Peter McKenna is here. Good morning, all. Sat at home. I'll be able to watch in 4K high definition, widescreen, 55-inch, so I can see you like you were sat in front of me, Mark. Peter, my friend, I can only apologise. Look, would you really want this sat in front of you? I don't suppose you would. And Peter says he's ill. Get well soon, my friend. Don't get me started on bounce back loans, says Andy Hare. The floor is yours, Andy. If you'd like to vent, feel free. Back to Peter McKenna, who says he wasn't the only bloke to do that with bounce back loans. Lots did it. Yes, one very close to my line of work did precisely the same thing. 13-year director ban. But, you know, the thing with it is, of all 59 and a half years I've been on this planet, I'm too young to remember proper wars. You know, we've had scuffles and skirmishes, but COVID was the one thing in my entire lifetime where we were all found ourselves in the same boat. And there was a degree, I think, of Dunkirk spirit and all pulling together, and that you have people like that. Ken Hatter is here. The show can begin. I don't think he's the only one abusing the COVID handouts. I totally agree. It would probably scare us all with the amount of people abusing the systems, but hard workers get penalised. Yeah. And you know, you think about the people that are genuinely struggling for one reason or another. You know, I mean, we've just mentioned the fact that there was 256 construction companies surveyed by Gleeds, the construction consultancy, and half have been impacted in some way or another by an insolvency in the last 3 months alone. Those are the people that need a leg up, not people that are going to con the system. Peter says it would be my pleasure to sit and talk with you, Mark. You should know that. It's a shame we're 300 miles away from each other. Yeah. Oh, listen, 300 miles. What's 300 miles? I could even pop around, couldn't I? I didn't even claim a penny. I know lots of self-employed people that did. Yeah, I did. I didn't. I didn't claim a damn thing. So, should we get on with the show? Because I quite enjoying this discussion bit at the end of the show, and I've got a good one for you today. I'm going to say a very quick good morning to Luke Carney, who's watching over on Instagram today. Morning, Luke. Good of you to join us. So let me roll the intro and get this show on the road like this. You can't win, can you? So there's been a fair bit of discussion. I'm going to keep this short. There's been a fair bit of discussion. Should I front load the show with some news, which I've already done, or should I load it at the end? Peter McKenna says, get on with the show, Mark. It's a fair comment, and I'm about to do so. But then on the other hand, Ken Hatcher is saying, I'm back to work before your discussion starts now. I can't win. Aside from applying to the powers that be to give you all an hour and a half every morning, I don't know what I can do. And we've already had another guess on our mystery machine, but it's not right. I'm going to show you what it is in just a moment, but it is. It is Thursday, the 8th of August. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition. In today's show, we have a big bang all the way from India. Morris Leslie and Kubota working in perfect harmony. We have a mammoth project from the US to gloat over. The time that Caterpillar became a Hollywood star, and prepare for a nasty dose of size envy. Plus, in the news discussion portion of the show, which Ken Hatcher sadly is going to miss, we'll be looking at the unspoken effect of our desire for cleaner construction. But before we get to all of that, we do need to address the small matter of our mystery machine. There's a very good suggestion from Peter McKenna. Put your phone in the cradle, Ken, and carry on enjoying the show. Yes. Well, bearing in mind the last bit of the show is largely audio anyway. Yeah. Caterpillar has never turned into a butterfly yet. The shareholders might disagree with that. Very quickly, we've had some more guesses on the mystery machine, which you haven't even seen yet. Dan Cullen reckons it's a small tracked shovel. He also reckons it could be a Fat Alice S15B. It's none of those things, and it's not a Hymac 580C, nor is it a Hydramec H270. It is one of these. There you are. because, very distinctive. A bucket and some teeth. I'm sure you're all looking at that and saying, yes, I know precisely what that is. Bet you're not. Well, that is our mystery machine for today. While you're mulling that over, I do need to very quickly remind you that it is another round today of our Excavator World Cup. Yeah, first guess on the mystery machine that we've actually seen is from Jim Turner, who says cat backhoe loader. It is not. Is that a very cat colour? Because Gary Muirhead has gone for the cat 219 LC. I can tell you, it's neither of those things. It's not a cat at all. That narrows it down like not at all. So, World Cup of Excavators today. Obviously Volvo emerged victorious yesterday. Who will emerge victorious today? We have Liebherr. They're quite good against Sumitomo. Also quite good, but are they in the same league? I need you to type into the chat either Liebherr or Sumitomo. And if you've been living under a stone or haven't been here for a day or two, here's the basic premise of the Excavator World Cup. You have an imaginary £100,000 to spend to get yourself one or more excavators, and you need to choose between Liebherr and Sumitomo. Simple as that. I can tell you that the Liebherr votes are already coming in. I've got a funny feeling that's the way it's going to lean, but we shall see. But keep those coming in. Go back to the mystery machine and show you a bit more. There you are. That doesn't help at all, but we'll be revealing a little bit more in just a moment. But I'm going to take that off the screen and I'm going to press on because I've got something dead sexy to show you. Couple of quick guesses very, very quickly. Jim Turner reckons it could be a Hydruma 804. It's not. And Dan Cullen reckons it could be a JCB 805. It's not one of those either. Keep the guesses coming. I don't know what size machine you're all sat in. What is it? 8, 10, 14, 20 tons? Possibly even bigger than that. Regardless of how big the machine you're sat in at the moment, you're about to get the equipment operator's version of penis envy. Have a look at the size of this.
The Dragline is the largest piece of machinery at Bengala. It's a beast James Zammit is very familiar with.
I'm a Dragline operator at Bengala. I've been here for 22 years, a bit over 20 years on the Dragline.
Operating such a massive piece of machinery requires more than one set of eyes, so James is always on shift with 2 other team members.
There's 3 people on the crew, one operating the Dragline, one on the dozer, and the other bloke's free to do the cable work and do any running around and whatever needs to be done. The main function of the Dragline is to uncover the coal. So we take the overburden or the inner burden off the coal for the excavators to come through and they'll de-coal, and then we'll come through again after that and take the next lot of inner burden between the coal seams. We sort of uncover a full strip in under a year now. We're moving through here pretty quick. I think we're uncovering strip 36 here at the moment. 36, and each strip is that we're uncovering 60 metres wide and a bit over about nearly 2.5 kilometres long.
The Dragline bucket holds approximately 140 tonnes of material, which is equivalent to the weight of a blue whale.
We're moving around about anywhere from about 35 to 45,000 cubic metres a shift.
James says when you're at the helm of a machine this size, there's a lot to think about.
Safety is the main thing we have to watch here. It's big machinery, and you won't get a second chance if that bucket hits the dozer or something like that. So we're always mindful of that, and that's the main reason we have 3 blokes here on the machine.
The weight of the Dragline means crews also need to make sure it's planted on firm ground.
The machine weighs a bit over 5,500 tonnes, so it's a lot of weight sitting there.
It's powered by electricity connected to a nearby substation by multiple cables.
It's 22,000 volts coming in, and that gets converted into DC power for the machine to run off. So the cable's at the moment running right through the centre of the pit, up over cable towers, and there's a lot of preparation in setting all that up.
With safety being a high priority for the team, James says they've become a close-knit unit.
We're a pretty tight crew. You know, you get on well with the blokes you work with. Definitely the best job in the mine.
Yep. Four people with room to walk about in the cab. Let's have a look. What is Ken Hatcher says? 22,000 volts. Imagine being sat on top of 22,000 volts. Be good to see one of those in person. It is some beast. I totally agree, Steve. It'd be amazing to have the PNH factory tour. They make some amazing equipment. I'd love to do that. Really would love to do that. Bloke's foot near one of the teeth looks like a Barbie doll foot. Yeah, it's some size, isn't it? Going back to the mystery machine, we've had a lot of guesses, none of which are correct as yet. What have we got? Gary Muirhead is going with the Mitsubishi MS-120. It's not one of those. It's not a Hymax 690, and it's not a John Deere 60G. It's not a Sumitomo SH700 LHD-5. Very specific, but not right. It's not a Hymax 480. It's not a Hymax 580. It's none of those things. Steve says you could take the whole family to work in that cab and they'd be quite comfortable as well. You wouldn't get all my family in there because there's dozens of the buggers, but yeah, I take your point. Let me show you a bit more of the mystery machine. There you are. Bit of a slow reveal today. You can sense I won yesterday. You can sense I'd like another victory. If I win today, I'm top of the tree with Mr. Cullen. Yeah, going head to head with Mr. Cullen. Steve Williamson, last month's champion, yet to make an impression on the league table for August. Steve, keep the guesses coming in. Well, everybody keep the guesses coming in. We'll be right back after a smidgen of this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
I was driving through the town of Sutton the other day, going to pick my father-in-law up, actually, and there on the side of the road, bit of demolition going on. Minor thing, not even worth stopping. But I did notice that the company doing it was actually Morris Leslie, or certainly the equipment on the site was Morris Leslie. And lo and behold, a couple of days later, this popped into my inbox.
Hi, I'm Graham Ogilvie, Managing Director of Morris Leslie Plant Hire. Joined the business in 2012. We're a national plant hire business with 15 depots throughout the UK. Yeah, Morris Leslie has had a lengthy relationship with Kubota, stemming back into the 1980s when Morris started in plant hire. The relationship with Kubota has grown tremendously over that period of time as we've increased the number of machines in our fleet, and it's been a fantastic relationship. Kubota machines are a great fit for Morris Leslie on a number of fronts. One being a market-leading machine in the UK from a customer perception, and the customer demand is exceptionally high, but also more from the business's point of view, because we obviously hire and sell machines. The cost of ownership and the cost of operating the equipment during the period of ownership is exceptionally good value. Customer acceptance of Kubota machines is second to none. The customers love the product, and it's a machine of choice. We have had fantastic service from the team at Kubota in the UK, and that relationship is very important. Particularly the delivery of machines is absolutely key to our business. In addition, the training which we provided is key, because the number of fitters we obviously have in our business is significant, and the product is continually evolving. So we always want to ensure that our fitters are fully trained so that they can provide the first class service to our customers in the very unlikely event of a machine breakdown, because the machines are so reliable, but we still need to have the experience of the fitters there to fix the machine first time when a fault does arise. The last 12 years we've seen rapid expansion of the business, growing from 4 depots to 15 depots. You know, we're still very much on the expansion drive, and automatically as part of that, Kubota, as our key excavator supplier for 8 ton and less machines, will form a key part of that. Yeah, I would just like to kind of thank Kubota for the relationship we have developed over the last 12 years. Kubota has been a key partner in the group's expansion throughout the UK and will play a key partner going forward. Not only is it the product, it's the people who work for Kubota, the people who help our fantastic team, but also the quality of the machine. The quality of the machine and the reliability of the machine is what really sets Kubota apart, and it really just makes all the difference, you know, from our point of view in terms of the total cost of ownership of operating a Kubota and running the Kubotas in our fleet. It really is the first choice for excavators.
Whole bunch of stuff to deal with on that. First of all, whoever shot that video was very, very cautious when it comes to audio. The guy was wearing 2 microphones. That's safety net on top of a safety net. But yeah, absolutely. Kubota should stick to lawnmowers and tractors. Jim Turner, on the other hand, says great machines. I will come back to the mystery machine in a moment, but there's a couple of comments here that I really want to pick up on. First and foremost is this from Gary. So that's what a grease gun looks like. Oddly enough, and it may have been that video when I was playing around with that yesterday, it may have been that inspired it. But today's after show discussion is about precisely that kind of thing. And there's Steve on the same sort of line. Pity they don't get looked after once they're out the door. All very true. Mystery Machine has obviously got everybody befuddled at the moment. We've got Gary going for the JCB 7. No. Dan Cullen go for the Massey Ferguson MF 450. It's not one of those. It's not a JCB 7C. In fact, it's not a JCB at all. Massey Ferguson 350. It's not. Peter McKenna is going off to Terex TC75. It's not a JCB 6D either, and it's not a JCB 812. I think I know what he's saying here. The least greased machine is probably a dumper. Yeah, the site taxi, absolutely. New Holland WE170, says Dan Cullen. It's not. Let me show you a bit more, see if that helps. There we are. That's a smidgen of body. Let's have a look. Going back to greasing, I always grease the machine once a week and a few pumps here and there midweek. Insert your own jokes. A few pumps here and there each midweek. Don't we all? Keep the guesses coming in. It looks like it's going to be a bit of a landslide for Liebherr in our World Cup of excavators. What it does make me wonder, though, I wouldn't be at all surprised if Liebherr emerge victorious on this, much the same as I wasn't surprised by Volvo emerging victorious yesterday. What I'm interested in is when we get down to the last knockings on this, when possibly the draw might pit Liebherr against Caterpillar, Komatsu against Volvo. Matches like that, I'm looking forward to seeing that. Gary Muirhead is going back on the mystery machine. He reckons it could be Hitachi UH61. It's not. And Ken Hatcher says, I grease the site dumpers if they're about when I'm pumping. It's all about Ken's pumping this morning. I don't know why that amuses me quite so much. And Ken has also put his name against the mighty Liebherr as well. I think this is going to be a bit of a whitewash, to be perfectly honest. We'll be back in a moment with quite a big project from America. You know how they say things are bigger in Texas? It's not just Texas. Things seem to be bigger in America as a whole.
So this is the Fargo diversion here in Fargo, North Dakota. They're running 365 24/7, cross over a couple different waterways, using a variety of bridges and aqueducts to get through the project.
Basically, we're digging a channel for the Red River, so when it floods, we can open the gates and divert the water around the city. Machines are always running. Doesn't matter if it's cold or raining, always running.
So I think the unique thing about this project, in addition to being the biggest P3 project in North America, is we are actually a combination of 3 firms. And so those 3 partners that make up our group bring to the table the background that we need to complete the project. We're using several different workflows here on the project, and Trimble's a huge part of that. All those make up our package, what we use on site, that's Trimble. Basically Works Manager's workflow, which is to send data from the office directly out into the field. The solution in the past has been to take a USB drive and put the design on there and then have someone run around to do that. With the sheer size of our project, that would just be unreasonable. So Works Manager definitely saves us time, saves us effort. So SITECH's value on the project, they bring Trimble products to us and they are a reseller, which is great, but they do bring a high level of support, and that is very, very important to us here on the project.
So being able to support that customer that's hours away by simply logging in at a computer, at a desk, is tremendous help.
Usually when I'm running Trimble system, I don't have to worry about my grade. And if any competitors come up, we usually check the grade with Trimble, so we know that we're on grade. So if I'm running Trimble, I know that I'm pretty confident what's going on.
So many people are looking at a set of plans and they want to understand what's going on site, but because of looking at one set of plans in its own small little box, you don't get to really identify where that fits in the world of the project itself. And with 30 miles of our project that could be placed upon, you don't get the relationship very good. So what Trimble Stratus allows us to do is really showcase all those designs, the actual as-built data that goes with that, in relationship to the project itself.
So SITECH Dakota is really, we're not out here just pushing a product, we really try to be the consultant. I think one of our greatest attributes is definitely the support function of this.
If we weren't utilizing Trimble and SITECH on this project, I think our biggest gaps would definitely be the transfer of data from the office to the field, and then the quality control of the machines themselves to make sure that they are operating at their intended use. So many times we find ourselves needing SITECH to help us with the operations side of the machines as well. That in itself has been what I've experienced on this project to be the most beneficial.
Pretty good, right? If anyone's wondering, that was described as a P3 project. That's a private-public partnership. P3. That's exactly what that is. So going back to our mystery machine, which looks like this, we've got Peter McKenna is going for a Komatsu PC360 LCI NLCI-11. Very precise, completely wrong, but very precise. Atlas 1702 or 1602, Gary Muirhead says. It's not one of those either. He's also going for a Komatsu PC120. I'll tell you now, it is not a Komatsu of any shape or form. Dan Cullen is going off sideways. He's going for the DMAG 450H or the 450. It's not one of those either. I'll show you a bit more. There you are. Obviously, a bit old school, this one. I'll leave that on the screen. I'm going to throw this up on the screen because Peter McKenna, we're just talking about greasing of machines. Company I'm working for this week looked shocked when I got my grease gun out and was told, don't bother, there's that much wear. As soon as you move, the grease just falls out. I still gave it a bit. 11,600 hours on the Hitachi I'm on, still going strong. The engine is bulletproof. Hitachi, no great surprise. Yeah, no surprise at all. Peter McKenna also says, I asked why they were so surprised from and said, as a rule, agency blokes don't tend to grease machines. I keep coming back to this. I'm going to take that away for just a moment. There has been this move to take men off the books, men and women off the books, push them into agency work or self-employed or whatever it might be. And there's another downfall of that system. If you were directly employed and you didn't grease the machine, you could quite honestly expect a toe up your rear end. If you're an agency person, apparently nobody expects you to do anything greasy wise. Jim Turner is going for a John Deere mystery machine. It's not. Dan Cullen going for the Sumitomo 130. I'll tell you now, this may just be to throw you off, but it might not be. I'm not likely to feature a mystery machine in the same day, or the same manufacturer, of a mystery machine and the World Cup of excavators. That would be too easy. I'd be leading you down the path. Peter is going for the Priestman Mustang 120. It's not. Let me add it up here again. Let me just have a look. How many more have we got? Oh, yeah, we've got a few to come. So let me show you a bit more. There you are. A smidgen, a soupçon of undercarriage, if that helps at all. Dan Cullen's going for the Cat 166C. It's not one of those, and it's not a Sumitomo SH130. I tell you now, nobody has, much like yesterday, nobody has even got the right make yet. So if anybody has guessed Komatsu, you're wrong. If anybody's guessed Caterpillar, you're wrong. JCB, you're wrong. John Deere, you're wrong. It's none of those whatsoever. I'm going to take it away because I need to crack on. What have I got coming up next for you? Oh, I know what it is. We're going to travel back in time a little bit to when Caterpillar kind of became a Hollywood star. Back after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Play you the Cat film in just a moment. Just want to address this. Dan Cullen has gone for the IH 3964. He's also gone for the International 630. It is not an international. It's not an international harvester. It is none. Just very quickly flash it up. That's what you're working with. If you've got anything on that, I'd love to hear from you. I've already flagged this up, so I'm not going to dwell on any sort of intro. This is the time when Caterpillar was kind of a star in Hollywood.
Well, earthworm tractors. That's it. That's big. That's important. That's worthwhile.
Oh, that's right. Now you're talking.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Caterpillar's Digging into History. I'm your host, Rusty Dunn. Alongside me, as always, for our adventures back in time, manager of the Corporate Archives, Lee Fosberg. Lee, how are you?
Good to see you again, Rusty.
Well, we are standing next to an old train station here in Chillicothe, Illinois, small town located just north of Peoria. This station, 88 years ago, was the epicenter for a movie premiere that happened. And a Hollywood star got off the train. His name was Joey Brown, for the world premiere of a film loosely based on Caterpillar, its machines, and salespeople.
You could say, arguably, movie history was made right here. So in 1936, on July 14th, it was named Joey Brown Day. Now the actor got off the train, hopped in a limo, and went up a parade route all the way into Peoria. But you know what? Also, arguably, the eyes of the world were on Peoria and the Caterpillar Tractor Company.
This would be the first Hollywood movie not to premiere in Hollywood or New York City, outside of those major places. Tell us how the movie got made. How did Caterpillar get involved?
Sure. Well, the plot is the movie was called Earthworm Tractors. Again, the star was Joey Brown. He played a person named Alexander Botts. Now, Botts had a love interest in trying to woo her, using kind of an old-timey term that they used at that time. He tried to sell a fleet of tractors to her father.
Well, this character, Alexander Botts, was actually created by a former employee of the Holt Manufacturing Company. His name was William Hazlitt Upson. Upson wrote more than over 100 stories for the Saturday Evening Post back in the late 20s, went on for many years, featuring Botts and the Earthworm Tractor Company, very popular at the time, very funny. Then, at some point, someone said, hey, let's make a movie.
Well, that's right, and it shows you the popularity of these stories. So, Warner Brother Pictures, they went to do the movie. They came to Caterpillar and said, it was loosely based off of Caterpillar. Can you supply us with tractors? Which we did. We gave 4 different models that were used in the movie. And not just that, parts of the movie were filmed in the former East Peoria plant and an area called the showroom, which is kind of similar to the Caterpillar Visitor Center today.
And by the way, Upson, former Holt employee, was friends with Louis Newmiller. Yes, former Caterpillar chairman.
That's right. A little bit of nepotism always helps, right? So, Newmiller was actually Upson's boss at the time, and they ended up becoming good friends, so there was a natural connection.
Interesting. You can actually go out and watch this movie in its entirety today on the internet, YouTube, some other places. But typical of a comedic movie like that, almost 90 years ago, a little bit of slapstick, some overacting, some crazy sequences. One scene at the end of the movie shows the earthworm tractor going across a rickety bridge. But spoiler alert, everybody's okay. Alexander Botts wins the girl, wins the deal, makes the big sale. But tell us about the movie premiere itself, everyone coming to Peoria on that evening 88 years ago.
Well, the movie premiere was actually quite spectacular. The red carpet came out. People were going up the carpet. It was literally covered by the local radio stations at that time, right? A different world than today. There were huge spotlights. There were like military planes doing kind of, acrobatic acts in the air. All things that made not just Peoria proud, but Caterpillar proud.
So this one and only Peoria-based movie premiere, considered a huge success, brought a lot of positive attention to not only the company, but Peoria, the central Illinois region. The actor, the comedian Joey Brown, went on to have a very successful career, a very friendly on-screen persona, known for his different look, had a very elastic type of mouth, so he really had that sort of comedic style about him, interesting to watch. But he would later go on to do some other things.
Oh, that's right. He was in many movies after this, arguably some better than this.
Right.
But he was best known for starring with Marilyn Monroe in Some Like It Hot. He even had the last line in the movie.
Very famous punchline at the end of the movie. We won't tell what it is, but you should go out and watch it. Interesting. We should set up a film appreciation class going forward.
That's right.
This is really interesting.
A new project.
I love it. Thank you for helping tell the story of Earthworm Tractors, the movie. They don't make them like that anymore. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks, Rusty.
And thanks, as always, to all of you watching Caterpillar's Digging Into History. More episodes to come. As always, go out, be safe in everything you do. Have a great day.
Imagine working for a company so big it has its own archive department. That's what we're talking about. Gary Muirhead says, who remembers an old lorry driver movie with Sid James in it as a truck driver? I think it was Truck Driver. Maybe Peter would know. There was an old film called Hell Drivers. Hell Drivers. And I know Sean Connery was in that very early, pre-Bond. Let's have a look. Not seeing any mention there of, let me have a look. No, it was. Hell Drivers was Sean Connery. It was also Patrick McGowan of The Prisoner fame, Stanley Baker, obviously very famous, Herbert Lom, who went on to be Inspector Dreyfus in the Pink Panther films, and Sid James of Carry On movie fame. Yes, Hell Drivers. Haven't seen that in years. Right, I'm going to go back to. So look, Jim Turner says, "I love old films with Kit in it. I'll have to look it up." There you are. And yes, I must admit the clips that they showed there of the Earthworm Tractors movie didn't look like the best movie in the world, but I'm kind of tempted to go and have a look. Jim Turner says, yes, Hell Drivers had Sid James in it, and yes, Stanley Baker, not Baxter. Yes, it is Stanley Baker. You're absolutely right. Hell Drivers it was. See? Not just a hat rack, my friends. There's some crap in there as well. Our final film is just under a minute, which means you've got just over a minute, in fact, to get the name of this machine. There's a bit more of it. I'm going to rattle through very quickly the guesses that we've had to date. Gary Muirhead reckons it could be an old New Hollander E215B. It's not. Peter McKenna going a bit more obscure. Beresford B15X. It's not. Also going a bit more obscure with the Manidig 325. Dan Cullen throws in the Mitsubishi MS120. Peter goes Nissan N40. It's not. Peter McKenna is also going for the 580C from the mighty Hymac. It's none of those things. Still. Jonathan Duras has just said, morning all, an MF excavator. It's not. However, I'm not going to say any more than that. And just by the by, we were talking about hell drivers, and I mentioned Messrs. Sid James, Stanley Baker, Patrick McGowan, Herbert Lom. Also in the film, William Hartnell, who I think was either the original or the second Doctor Who. Yeah. Gary Muirhead is going for the Ford Excavator. It's not, but much the same as I said about Jonathan Duras, it's not, but it almost is. Take it away. Play the last film. You've got just over a minute. Otherwise, I'm walking away with another. I'm walking away with another victory. Be back after this.
Hi, I'm Holly. Join Mark Antley on The Breakfast Show. We are Ovenden.
What we got here? Jonathan Duras is going for the MF H25. You bear that in mind with people. Just bear that in mind because you've no idea just how close you are. It's not, but you're very close. And Peter McKenna is going for a Ferguson 450. Yes, it's not. Jim Turner is also mentioning, but we're starting the movie club apparently. Other films, The Flying Seabees and Tycoon, both John Wayne films, are very good too. What is the film in which John Wayne drives a cat? I think it's a D6 or something like that, possibly smaller than that. There is a famous picture of John Wayne driving a Caterpillar machine. Can't remember what the name of the movie is. I'll try and look it up in just a moment. So let's throw back to this. Yeah, we need to play the final film. All the way from India. Let me take this away so you can see it nice and clearly. All the way from India is what I was saying. Right, so I can now clarify. So we were talking about hell drivers with Sid James and Sean Connery and Uncle Tom Cobley and all. Well, it turns out that the film that starred the Duke, John Wayne, at the helm, it turns out it's a Cat D7, was not Hell Drivers. It was called Hell Fighters. Somebody in the chat has said, here we are, Mark Whiting. Is the film Hellfighters? It is. It's when he's playing Red Adair, putting out oil well fires. It's that too. And I can show you. Here we are. Here's John Wayne being all caterpillary. There you are. John Wayne at the helm of a Cat D7. Doesn't get much cooler than that, does it? Really? I mean, there are times when I consider myself to be fairly cool. I'm never John Wayne behind the levers of a Cat D7 cool. It looks like I've won. It looks like I've won again, people. I do apologize. Well, I don't apologize. I'm quite pleased about it, actually. So we've got, what else have we got? We've got Jonathan Duras, bear that one in mind because mighty close. Ferguson 450S, it's not. Priestman, M120 says Dan Cullen, it's not. Gary Muirhead says the MF 350, it's not. Chris Ford has literally just arrived. Chris, the fun and games you've missed today. Sid James, Sean Connery, John Wayne, all been on the show for reasons I'm not entirely sure of. Is it a Fiat? It's not a Fiat. Is it an RB 220RH? It's not. Is it an MF 350H or a 350? It's not. Is it a Priestman VC 120? It is none of those things. I can tell you. In fact, I can show you. That's what you had to work with. Now, bearing in mind, who was it? Jonathan Duras reckons it was an H25. It's actually an H52. And it wasn't MF, it was Richier. If you remember rightly, we were talking about Richier, or I was talking about Richier yesterday. Richier was the French brand that basically ended up owning Ford excavators for a while. They made them as Richier for France and Ford everywhere else. That's a French one. That's the H52 from Richier. So just bear with me while I bask in my own glory here. I've just awarded myself 3 points. 3 points. Not sure that's very right, but there you are. Dan Cullen is leaving us. Sorry to see you go, Dan, but I fully understand we have been babbling on somewhat. We also need to address the small matter of today's Excavator World Cup. The third round of our Excavator World Cup competition pitted Liebherr against Sumitomo. But which brand came out on top? Well, we put it to the public vote, and I can tell you that the winner is Liebherr. Liebherr goes forward to the second round, while sadly Sumitomo leaves empty-handed. Tomorrow's match, another biggie, New Holland. We've been talking about New Holland a lot today. New Holland takes on Kobelco. So make sure you're here to talk about that. I'm not going to roll the outro. I'm going to switch over to the other bit of the show in just a moment because there's something I'd like to discuss with you. So while I'm doing that, let me just play this as the interlude.
If you would like to buy a limited edition Break Fast show sticker, head on over to buymeacoffee.com/demolition news /extras.
That wasn't actually the button I meant to press, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. Right. The next part of the show. I think we can all agree that we need to do something about climate change. I think we can all agree that as an industry and as a society, we need to change our ways. And while we might not necessarily agree on the correct path towards net zero, I think we can all agree that a change of construction equipment fuel will be inevitable. I'm not going to get into electric versus hydrogen. That's a debate for another day. People are far smarter than me are still trying to figure that one out. And in truth, it's currently like comparing oranges with pineapples. Hydrogen might yet offer the best alternative for a certain weight class of machines, but it's not here yet. The fuel isn't widely available, and we actually don't know how much it's likely to cost. On the other hand, pure electric brings with it a bunch of logistical issues, but it's available right now. As I said, I'm not going to get drawn into all of that. One of the main reasons I'm not going down that path is that, in all likelihood, it will probably make very, very little difference to equipment operators. I've driven both hybrid machines and all-electric machines, and aside from the lack of noise, you can't really tell the difference. The electric machines I've driven have been a little more responsive than their hydraulic counterparts, but the pedals and the levers are all where they normally are, and they do precisely the same thing. I haven't had the opportunity to drive a hydrogen machine as yet, but based on JCB's hydrogen combustion engine, the same rules will apply. The only real difference for an operator is remembering to put electric or hydrogen into the machine rather than diesel. However, there is a breed of industry professionals which this switch, let me do that again. However, there is a breed of industry professionals upon which this switch will have a profound and lasting effect. And I wonder if this switch, when it comes, might prompt some of them to just call it a day, taking their knowledge, skills, and experience with them. The people I'm talking about are those unsung heroes of the sector, the fitters and the mechanics that keep the wheels and tracks of the industry turning. Fitters and mechanics have already seen their roles undermined by a transition to powertrain systems so complex that they require the presence of a laptop and a scientist. But the switch to alternative fuels could have an even greater impact. If the road to net zero turns out to be via hydrogen, hydrogen combustion engines, they'll probably be just dandy. In the case of JCB, the hydrogen combustion engine is so similar to the diesel power pack from which it's derived that they are built and assembled on exactly the same production line. If, however, the final switch is all electric or hydrogen fuel cell, that will present the industry's fitters and mechanics with a very, very stark choice. They can either go back to school and learn the inner workings of a hydrogen fuel cell, or they could possibly hang up their spanners once and for all and leave the industry forever. Obviously, any transition will be slow and gradual, so in all likelihood, today's fitters could find themselves working on diesel, electric, and hydrogen machines simultaneously. But there could come a time when the skills of a trained fitter are no longer required on a day-to-day basis. What happens to them then? Who is going to cover the cost of upskilling those already skilled people just because somebody has shifted the fuel goalposts? Will they actually want to go back to school and basically unlearn everything they know? And while I'm about it, who stands to gain the most from this? As I mentioned earlier, construction equipment has been made so complex and sophisticated that maintenance of some machines is now beyond the skill levels of most of those on site or in the company workshop. You have no option now but to call out a dealer representative who will arrive with his laptop and his sonic screwdriver. But imagine how complex it will become if we switch to all electric or all hydrogen. We've already seen a prototype machine from Bobcat that operates with a dry system. No fuel lines, no hydraulics whatsoever. Everything is powered by electric motors and servos. Even the most skilled modern fitter will be left scratching his beard trying to fix something like that. But like I said at the outset, I'm all for saving the planet and limiting the impact of climate change. And if that means switching to alternative fuels, then so be it. But know this, as we herald in a new era of hydrogen or electric power, we're possibly bringing down the curtain on an era in which a man with a spanner could fix just about anything. There's my thought for the day. Should have called it thought for the day, really, because that's kind of what it's turning into. While I was writing that, it did occur to me. Obviously, I was speaking there specifically about fitters and mechanics and those kinds of folks, upon which the industry has relied for many, many years. But I think it also impacts on operators as well. I know we discussed earlier in the show the fact that there are agency operators who aren't even expected to grease machines anymore. But looking at each of you, I'm not saying that you could necessarily. I'm sure some of you could. I'm not necessarily saying that you could strip down an engine, put it back together again, reassemble a powertrain, and all those things. But there are a lot of tasks that you perform as operators that keep that machine rolling, keep that machine moving, keep it productive. Will you be able to do that when, rather than a diesel machine, it's an electric machine or a hydrogen fuel cell machine? And how do we make that transition? And one of the things that concern me with this, and I realise this is not a unique situation, and I understand the need for the road to net zero and the need to reduce climate change, and I'm fully aware of all of that. But somebody on high, be it the EU or the British government, have decided we're going to gradually phase out diesel and we're going to slowly phase in electric or hydrogen. Has anybody given any thought to the potential impact on employment? We've already seen lots of people leaving the industry as a result of the loss of grandfather rights, and I'm sure we're going to be seeing more of those between now and the end of the year when it becomes, that will be the cutoff point. I think it's December this year. But also, has anybody considered the cost of upskilling? If you've got not an operator, you've got a fitter of, 10, 15 years experience, he's really, really good. He's maybe not as good as somebody that's got 30 or 40 years under their belt, but he's a very, very good fitter, very good mechanic, can really make a machine sing, keep it on the road and on site. We're now telling him that basically all that you've learned is now useless because we are switching from diesel to hydrogen or electric. Who picks up the tab for him to go and reskill? Does he? And that's kind of one of my worries, because if you have a contractor or a plant hire company who decides, actually, the time has come, we need to say goodbye to our diesel machines and start to phase in others, there will be a slow ramping down of one and a ramping up of the other. But there could come a time when that very experienced, very skilled mechanic or fitter is faced with a stark choice. Rather than working on 20, 30, 40 machines in a week, keeping the fleet rolling, all of a sudden his skills only allow him to work on 10, 6, 3. Employers will look at that and think this guy is not fully employed. He's not fully busy all the time. Can we let him go? And if they do let him go, he's basically thrown on the scrap heap. So if he wants to stay in this business, his only real option is to go back to school and park up everything that he knows about diesel engines and start to learn about fuel cells and batteries and all of that kind of thing. Are we pushing those people to the edge of employment? Oddly enough, and maybe it's the makeup of the audience, nobody said a word. Nobody said a word. I was expecting lots of people to pipe up on that, but maybe we don't have many fitters in our midst. But we do have people within our midst. I mean, particularly somebody like a Jim Turner. Jim spends if he's not working on a machine, he's working on a machine. He's forever tinkering and that kind of thing. You imagine. Now, I'm not saying it's going to affect Jim because Jim kind of does things in his own way. But you imagine those, and I mention them as unsung heroes, fitters as unsung heroes. Some of the people I've encountered and met, particularly in things like quarries, where you've got not quite round the clock production, but it's constant production, and there is a guy in the workshop there. He's usually the first on site, he's the last to leave, and he can fix anything with a combination of a wrench and a sledgehammer. He can keep those machines going, and he knows them. He knows them inside out and back to front. He could turn up for work one of these days, having cut his teeth on, off the top of my head, Cat 350, Cat 777s. Doesn't need to be specifically Caterpillar, but he turns up one afternoon, and rather than diesel-powered machines with all that goes with them, he is now he is the new pride of our fleet. It's powered by hydrogen. What does he do? Go on YouTube. How to maintain a hydrogen excavator. I don't think any of that exists. And I wonder about the trickle down. I've spoken to the likes of Volvo and Hyundai and JCB and Liebherr as well, who are all obviously making that energy transition themselves. And they are already training. They have already trained their own in-house dealer fitters on maintaining and repairing electric machines. They will soon be doing exactly the same with hydrogen. JCB may already be doing that. I don't honestly know. But where does that trickle down end? At what point do plant hirers and contractors start to make that change? Or, and this is the cynic coming out of me, bearing in mind I've reported on somebody ripping off the bounce back loan schemes. I am feeling fairly cynical this morning. Is this an opportunity for the major manufacturers to say, we don't want people tinkering with our machines anymore? Much the same as you can't really tinker with a modern car. We're basically going to sell these machines, much the same as that. There you are. An iPhone, perfect example. There is nothing I can do with that. I can load apps onto it. It does a whole bunch of functions, but I can't change the battery. I can't change the memory. It's a sealed system. Is this an opportunity for equipment manufacturers to say, because our machines are so complex and so complicated and so sophisticated, we are going to sell them as a sealed system. We do not want you, Mr. Fitter, anywhere near it. If you do, your warranty will be null and void. In which case, rather than having Bob in the workshop on 10 quid an hour, who can keep virtually anything rolling, you've now got to send your machine back to a dealer, and the dealer will charge you basically whatever they damn well please. Is that where we're headed? Chris Ford says, sounds like the change in power supply sounds like a bit like decimation. Some will work in okay, it's not decimation. decimalization. Right? Let me try that again with my brain in gear. Sounds like the change in power supply. Sounds a bit like decimalization. Some will work in pounds, shillings, and pence. Some will work in metric, and some will work in both. Can you though? Can you? As I say, as it stands at the moment, and I've seen it up close. If you are currently working on a diesel combustion engine, and you are required to work on a hydrogen combustion engine, aside from the spark plugs and a few other odds and ends, apart from that, one looks very much like the other. All the bits are roughly the same. They all do roughly the same job. You'd be fine. So yes, you could have fitters and mechanics working on both. If, however, that change becomes not hydrogen combustion, but hydrogen fuel cell or battery, not so much. Can you imagine working on an electric machine on site, stood in a pool of water? Sounds like fun to me. Probably only do that once. I mean, apparently, I've asked this question. I specifically remember asking it of Volvo. They assure me that that's not an issue because all the lecky, as they refer to it in some parts of the country, is kind of encapsulated. You're not likely to get a zap while you're stood in water and so on. And let's be absolutely honest, given the litigious nature of the world today, I can't imagine anybody putting a battery in there that is likely to give somebody 22,000 volts up the rear end. However, there are still issues to address. As it stands at the moment, I was only half joking when I mentioned people fixing things with spanners and sledgehammers. How careful do you need to be with an electric battery? We've seen them explode. I watched one the other day where a boxer dog. I own boxer dogs. I watch boxer dog videos. There was a boxer dog chewing on a mobile phone battery, and it didn't explode, but it caught fire and sent the boxer dog running around the house. Could we have the same issue here? You get a bit too heavy-handed with a screwdriver, sledgehammer, hit the battery. What's the problem? What's the issue there? What do you do with that in that instance? And what is the fallout potentially of hydrogen? Everybody keeps telling me that hydrogen is completely harmless. I'm inclined to believe them. But is it? And how do we go about handling it? Chris Ford says, how many times have people connected the terminals on a standard battery the wrong way around? Yeah. Guilty as charged. Yeah, I've done that. I don't know anything about I am one of those people that is actually quite thankful for the switch to dealers looking after your car, because I know nothing. Nothing. I know where to put the windscreen washer fluid. I know where to top up the water, and I know where the oil goes, and I know where the dipstick is. Apart from that, I'm useless. I am retarded when it comes to that kind of thing. So I'm quite grateful of that. Jonathan Durr says, look at the problems with electric scooters. Yeah, look at the problem with electric scooters. But just going back to my point about my uselessness, my dad, because he was a chauffeur and he generally had kind of a loan car, he had to drive the car home, so he had that for private use. And we used to go fishing in a Bentley from time to time because that was what he happened to be driving. Great fun. But he had, in my recollection, I think my dad had one new car as long as I can remember. It was a Ford Escort estate. He had the estate because he was a fisherman and so on down the line. And apart from having a service to maintain the warranty, every bit of care of that car, my dad did himself. Everything. Oil changes, spark plug changes, filter changes, everything. He even undercoated the was it called undercoating, where you actually put like a bitumen under the car because it didn't come with that. He did all of that himself. He would have been fine. Me, if I've got to maintain it, the car's breaking down. Simple as that. The problem with that is because I need to maintain my warranty, they've got me over a barrel. If I take my car in or my wife's car in for a service and say, could you service that? And they come back and say, yes, you appear to have lost 5 of your phalanges and they're 60 quid each. I don't know. I made the word, well, I didn't make the word phalanges up. Anyone that's ever watched Friends would know exactly where I got that from. But I would be over a barrel. If they say I need new phalanges, then new phalanges it is, and I'm just going to have to part with the money. Could we end up with a situation like that where, the machines are now so complex, so sophisticated that you take them into the fitter and or into the dealer, and the dealer says, "Happy days. Tell him about the phalanges." Yeah. Once dropped a spanner on a machine that shorted the starter out. Fortunately, it was in neutral. Fortunately, or you'd still be chasing it down the road. Car maintenance was a national pastime on a Saturday when I was younger. I actually did I can't remember if I did an article. It may have been a podcast, actually. The Lost Art of Tinkering, I think I called it. And for precisely that reason. And there's a couple of versions of this. I remember it wasn't Saturday when I was at home. It was a Sunday. So I lived in a block of flats and there were cars parked down below. And on a Sunday, all of the dads, and it was the dads, would be down on the cars would all have their bonnets open. They'd all be chatting to each other, changing spark plugs and generally tinkering away and doing all that kind of thing. That's all gone away. And there's a further version of that, which I only learned shortly before my dad passed away. My grandfather, on my dad's side, also called Mark, but bizarrely, my dad was a Mark as well. That's all as an aside. But my dad was the first person down his road, Groom Walk in Bermondsey. He was the first person down his road to actually own a car, an old Ford Cortina, years ago. And it was that big a deal that if he went out there to lubricate something or oil something or whatever, the entire road, all the men would basically come out and hover around the car watching him do it because this was novelty. When was the last time you saw somebody do that on something other than an old project car? They've bought themselves an old TR7, Spitfire, something like that, and they're working on it, they're tinkering it with it. I understand that, but when was the last time? I mean, the car on my drive is 2.5, 3 years old. I've never had the bonnet up once. Not my problem. Not my problem at all. Garvin over on Monster Digger says, no Haynes handbooks down the local motor factors for these new machines. That's for sure. Yeah. I think that's exactly what we're heading for. And are we prepared for that? Chris Hall said, if I search the parts bin, I could still find a set of points and a condenser. Yeah. Well, that was one of the joys of clearing out. Well, one of the joys of clearing out my dad's garage when he finally shuffled off this mortal coil. He'd kept everything, and there were some bits and pieces that oh Christ, do you remember that? That used to be on the mantelpiece in the old house, and so there was a few of those, but there was an awful lot of stuff. Why the fuck did he keep that? I don't even know what it was, but he kept it. Wife's dad is exactly the same. He's got a shed, or he's got two sheds in his garden, one of which is just full of bits of timber. And when I say bits of timber, yes, there are a few, 10-foot bits of timber all sort of tucked into the loft of the damn thing, but he's got bits of wood like this. I don't know whether he was expecting to have to start a fire or something, or whether he was planning to build a boat out of offcuts. Don't know what it was, but he's retained a lot of wood. God alone knows what we're going to do with that. Right, enough for people. Go and do your day, would you? Because I've got to run my son to squash or racquetball or something. I can't remember. I've got to run him somewhere. Be back tomorrow, and we're going to have another round of the Excavator World Cup. And I very quickly, if I can throw this up on the screen, I can tell you tomorrow's match will pit New Holland against Cabelco. New Holland Cabelco. Looking forward to that one. So tune in if you could. Wonder how many of the newer generation of plant operators could bleed a machine. Yeah, I wonder. How many would want to? How many would need to? But how many could? It's an interesting point. It is an interesting point. And as I say, there's kind of a confluence here. I've already talked about the fact that we've got an industry that is gradually pushing more and more people off the books. And we've also mentioned today the fact that apparently we've got an acceptance within the industry. If you're employing agency workers, don't expect them to grease machines. what happens then? There's a bit of me that thinks we're going to lose fitters. There's another bit of me that thinks actually we probably need fitters more than we ever did before, at least for now, because we've gone so far down that self-employment route where they don't care about the machines. Maybe we need the backup. Yeah. Chris Ford says, foregone conclusion tomorrow. I thought that when I said Hitachi taking on O&K. Turned out I was wrong. And who was it? Somebody lost to Priestman. Zoomline. Now, I can understand a bit of anti-Chinese sentiment, and I realise not many people have actually got behind the levers of a Zoomline machine. But what is it now? 25 odd years since we last had a Priestman, and yet sentimentality won over. So you never know. You never know. We could. I doubt it, but we could see New Holland beating Kobelco. We could see Kobelco beating New Holland. If you'd like to find out, you'll have to tune in tomorrow. Until then, everybody, go and have a fantastic day. I've no idea what the discussion point will be tomorrow. I'm sure I can come up with something because my mind is empty other than this. So I'll see you tomorrow. Till then, have a good day. All the best.